All right, thank you. So again, welcome everybody. And we're so pleased to get Melissa Moeller here again. She did a value added producer grant presentation last year at this time. And she's going to do it again and answer any questions you have about applying for the value added producer grants. It's a great opportunity and we're excited to learn from the master. So take it away, Melissa.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited that you're here. I have to say that the Value Added Producer Grant is my favorite grant program. It is the closest thing to free money that's out there for farmers, ranchers, and fishers. A little bit about who I am. I ran Misty Meadows Farm for 16 years. I started it with 3 hens. I had a dream to just be able to grow my own backyard chickens and eggs, and eventually grew it to a 3,000 hen operation. We sold pasture-raised organic eggs throughout Western Washington, and I'm pleased to say that the farm has continued on. We sold it in 2021 to Grace Harbor Farm, and they have continued operating it the same way we were. So in that process, I learned about the Value Added Producer Grant. And as a farmer, I applied for 3. My first one was for turning retired laying hens into soup stock, and got awarded a grant to do that. And then when that one was finished, I thought, this is a great program. I'm really enjoying what I'm able to do and how I'm able to grow my farm because of the grant money through USDA. So then I did a grant to do bagged compost. And my husband said I'd really arrived because I was able to start selling chicken poop to people for money. And then my third and final VAPG for myself was selling more eggs to more people and more places. And it was at that point that I felt like I really wanted to shift my energy to helping farmers apply for this grant rather than running my own farm. So I went and got an MBA degree and have been working ever since, writing grant applications for farmers, ranchers, fishers, as well as for food-related nonprofits. But again, this one is the best one. Okay, so to start off, what is the purpose of the Value Added Producer Grant? So the grant really has 3 purposes. Its main purpose is to help agriculture producers successfully process, market, and sell value-added products. It is here to help you expand markets as an agricultural producer and to strengthen rural economies. This is the grant that all the senators and representatives get to brag about how they are saving the family farm. They are bringing jobs to rural economies. They are bringing more money directly to the farmers. Okay, so to be an applicant, you must be an agricultural producer, and USDA defines that as an individual or entity that produces an agricultural commodity through participation in the day-to-day labor management and field operations. So if you just own a farm out in Colorado and you're a billionaire and you never visit it, you're not eligible for this grant. This is for people who are actually doing the day-to-day work of farming. You don't have to do all of it. You certainly can hire people to help you in it, but you need to be directly involved and not just a distant owner. Okay, so applicants must currently produce and own more than 50% of the raw commodity that will be used for the value-added product. So that means you need to be actually growing or harvesting it yourself. You can't purchase the entire amount and make a product and sell it for the grant purposes of this grant. You need to be the producer. You need to own that product from its raw commodity state through the production of the value-added product during the project. So you can't be a dairy farmer who sells it into the commodity market and doesn't keep control of it through the point where it's finished. So that would be an ineligible producer. Most of you, however, I'm assuming, would be selling it directly to consumers, restaurants, grocery stores on your own. For value-added products with multiple ingredients, you don't have to produce all of them, just one of them. So one of my favorite examples of this is if you want to start selling pizza, You only need to grow the tomatoes. You don't have to grow everything else that goes on that pizza in order for it to be an eligible value-added product. Okay, product eligibility. So the products, in order to be an eligible product, you need to show that you are adding value to the base commodity in one of 5 methods, and we're going to talk about those shortly. You need to show that you can increase your customer base. You can't just continue to sell to the same customers and the same volume. The USDA is wanting to fund projects that will reach new customers. In addition, they want to show that you are going to be bringing more revenue back to your farm or ranch because of the value-added product. So it's not just we're going to stay stable and continue to do the same thing with the same customers for the same amount of money. They want to show growth. They want you to show growth. Okay, so there are 5 methods, like I said, that add value. The first is a change in physical state. The second, enhanced production methods. Third, physical segregation. Fourth, renewable energy. Fifth, locally produced food product. You only need to meet one of those methods for product eligibility. There really is no benefit in saying that you meet more, which you probably will meet more. But we're going to talk about the 3 most interesting of these, the ones that most people apply for. So the first is a change in physical state. This is what everyone thinks about when they think about a value-added product. So it's an irreversible process that alters the commodity and enhances its value. So milk into cheese, wool into clothing, live livestock into packaged meat. Those are all a change in physical state that you can't go back. You can't go back to the way it was before. Okay, so that's very clearly a value-added product. In addition to that, we have 2 other methods that are really interesting for most farmers. Enhanced production methods. So if you use a recognized set of production practices that increase the value of the commodity. So examples of that would be being certified organic or eggs produced from free-range chickens. Any certification or method that you can say allows you to charge more for your product than you would if it were just sold into the commodity market is an enhanced production method. The big catch-all, though, this is the one I love, locally produced agricultural food product. Any agricultural food product that is marketed and distributed within 400 miles of the product's origin or within the state in which the product is produced is a locally produced agricultural food product. So really, an example, almost anything. If you can show that people in Washington state are willing to pay you more for your blueberries or your eggs or your wool or anything, that is adding value to it. So my recommendation for people is always, rather than think about, well, I'm growing blueberries, I want to start making blueberry jam to sell, I would say first apply for a value-added grant to produce more blueberries to sell to more people and more places. Start there. Start with your biggest product sale, the thing that you sell the most of to the most people that you can produce more of and want to produce more of. This is the category that I feel like fits most people. Okay, so there's 2 types of VAPG grants. There's a planning grant and a working capital grant. The planning grant, those funds are just to pay a qualified third-party consultant to come up with your feasibility, marketing, and business plan. Those really are mainly going to be people who are going to apply for those are larger groups where you've got a group of applicants. You're not really sure if this is going to work as an organization. You might apply for a planning grant. Individuals, I always recommend applying directly for the working capital grant. That gets the money to you and it pays for eligible project expenses related to the processing and or marketing of your value-added product. Okay, so looking at the types of working capital grants, we have an emerging market proposal request of $50,000 to $250,000. If you are an applicant other than an individual, this would work for you, whereas some of the others might not. The issue with this one, though, is that you need a third-party project-specific feasibility study done before you can apply. So you would need to have the funds to go pay for that feasibility study as part of your application. So this is for anything that you haven't been marketing for at least 2 years. If you have been marketing it for 2 years or more, and you are an independent producer, I would recommend that you apply for the market expansion grant. So this allows you to take an existing value-added product that you have been producing and successfully marketing for at least 2 years and apply for that $50,000 to $250,000. You don't need a feasibility study. Instead, all you need is a business or marketing plan that either you can write or you can work with someone else to help you write that for the application. And then finally, if you have a small project, you can apply for $50,000 or less, actually less than $50,000, excuse me. And any applicant type are eligible for that. You don't have to do a feasibility study. You don't have to do a business plan, but I would still recommend doing a business plan or marketing plan. By the time you're done with the application, you will have all the components that you would need for a business plan. So, it's in your best interest to do one. Okay. So everyone always wants to know, what can I spend the money on? What's it good for? So the first thing to think about is you need to draw a line in the sand between production and post-harvest. So this grant only covers post-harvest, or really outside of harvest or outside of production expenses. So you can use the money to pay for processing costs. So after it's harvested and in your packing shed, all of your costs involved in the labor, the utilities, other ingredients that are added, your packaging, your labeling, all of those. Redesigning your labeling qualifies. Going and buying all the packages that you need in order to sell it for the project period, those are all eligible. In addition, you can purchase extra raw commodity from someone else, as long as you produce at least 50% of that raw commodity. So if you feel like you're really good at marketing blueberries and you want to partner with some smaller producers and buy from them and then market it, that would be an eligible expense as part of this. You can have them pay for advertising and promotion, any tastings you want to do, ads that you want to run, billboards, newspaper, radio, TV, really whatever you would want that makes sense for you. I would never recommend going and doing those things if it doesn't make sense for your business, but those are eligible expenses. Any of your general business expenses that are specifically related to the value-added project and getting that accomplished would count. You can have your website redeveloped. You need to have a website if you're doing a market expansion. If you're doing an emerging market, you could do a website initial development, but for the market expansion, it needs to be redeveloped, and it needs to be specifically around the value-added product that you are applying for. Social media, if you want to hire a social media manager, have somebody help you promote you on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, or I don't know, whatever the new ones are, that's an eligible expense. And then your distribution, shipping, and delivery costs. So if you pay somebody to drive a delivery truck for you, that's an eligible expense. Any of the expenses involved in operating that vehicle are covered as well. The things that are not covered: ineligible uses of the funds. Everyone always wants to build something. They want to build a barn. I know, I get it. You want to buy a tractor. You want to buy a delivery vehicle. Those are not covered by this particular grant. Instead, I would say focus on the things that it does cover. And then when you are reimbursed for those, your money is free to do with whatever you want. So when I did my egg expansion grant, they paid for someone to wash the eggs, carton the eggs, take those eggs to the grocery stores, the cartons that they went in, all of those expenses, those were covered. The money then came back to me. Could have gone to Hawaii with them, but instead I built a big barn. So that's one way to look at it. Don't get caught up on, but I really want money for this. Well, it's not going to pay for a tractor or a barn. It's going to pay for labels and cartons. Okay, so matching funds. So this is typically a one-to-one matching grant, meaning you have to put up half the money for the half that they give you. Now, don't get scared by that because they have some great ways that you can meet your match. So the match needs to be in one of these 5 methods: in-kind raw commodity. That means that you take the commodity value of what you grow, and that is your match. So if you're growing blueberries, we would figure out what is the commodity value of blueberries. Let's say it's $1 a pound, but you're selling them because they're local and organic. You can sell them for $2.50 a pound. That $1 a pound is your match. So that's part of how you meet that 50%. That's where we always start, is how close can you get to that 50% with just the value of the raw commodity. The next thing we try to do is your family in-kind labor. So the grant will not pay you and will not pay your son, your wife, your daughter, your cousin, your nephew, but you can use the value of the labor from family members toward your 50% match. So you would be surprised at how quickly we can come up with $250,000 in a match using commodity and labor. If you don't get there, you can add cash, a loan, a line of credit. You can go to somebody else who's going to, for whatever reason, give you cash. You can approach somebody and ask for an in-kind contribution as long as it's not a federal source or a federal grant. So for example, you could negotiate with someone for a reduced price on producing a website, and the part that they've reduced it by would be a third-party in-kind contribution. Okay, again, on matching funds, it needs to be 50% of the project cost. You can't ask USDA for $250,000 and you only contribute 50. It has to be 1-to-1. You can only spend your matching funds on eligible expenses. It's a reimbursement grant. So you need to spend the money first and then get reimbursed on all of the expenses. Your matching funds can't have a conflict of interest. You can't hire your high school nephew to produce your website and pay him $20,000. You can't even hire your 30-year-old niece who does website design for a living. That would be considered a conflict of interest. Okay. The matching funds are verified at the time you apply and again at the time of the award. Oh, and there we are. That is my brief presentation overview on the Value-Added Producer Grant Program. I do have a more extensive version of this that we'll be doing in November. I don't have a date set, so November, December, but watch for a half-day complete webinar on this. And I would love to take questions now.
Great.
I have a question.
Oh, Elizabeth, hang on just one sec. We have a couple in the chat, and then and feel free to add questions to the chat or just speak up. Let's just take the ones that came in first, and then we'll get to you, Elizabeth. So the first one is, what are approximate costs for the feasibility study?
Yeah, that's a little bit difficult to answer. It really is going to depend on the scope of your operation and the project that you want. I would say a good frame of reference would be about $10,000 to $15,000. They tend to be very extensive in terms of looking at all of the different components of your operation. It may be something that would be really valuable for you to have before you launch into some new product, to really understand, is there really room in the market for what you want to do? Do you have everything in place that you need to make that happen? Having a good feasibility study is also a great thing to take to a bank if you want to pursue a loan in the future.
Thank you. And we also have from the same AG, hi AG, does new equipment purchasing fall into the working capital funds eligibility?
No, it does not. You cannot buy equipment with the value-added producer grant. However, you can buy supplies. So if something that you need in order to produce this value-added product has a useful life of, I believe, I want to say 1 year and $5,000, that's considered a supply. and not a piece of equipment. But again, think longer term in terms of, you already know you're going to need packaging, you know you're going to need labels, you know you're going to need to pay somebody to be at the farmer's market for you. Think about having the value added producer grant pay for those expenses, with the idea that down the road, you'll be able to buy whatever equipment you need to continue to expand your business.
I just saw that there's a question to expand more on what is required for a feasibility study. Do you want to say any more about it than you have already?
Oh, yeah, that would be a much more extensive answer than here. If you go to Rural Development's website, they do have guidance on what they would be looking for in a feasibility study. But again, you can't do the feasibility study yourself. It has to be done by a third-party qualified consultant.
Thanks. And let's take Elizabeth. Okay, did you type your question in, Elizabeth? Is it this one that is the grant
Yes.
targeted at edibles only? Can flowers count as a value-added product?
So yes, flowers can be considered a value-added product. However, they do not fit in that fifth category of locally produced food. Unfortunately, USDA, that is the one category where they specified food. So that makes flowers more challenging. I have written applications that have been funded for flowers where they were able to show enhanced production methods, but it is a little more challenging. Yeah, and definitely if you're taking flowers and turning them into something, say into essential oils or dried flowers, that is a change of state that would be eligible, since that's irreversible. But just growing and selling flowers directly is much more challenging to get that funded.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Marty, you're muted. Sorry.
Darn.
Okay.
Are there samples or examples of value-added business plans that people can see?
So I have a template and definitely can share that as part of what is sent out after this, of a marketing plan template that I created that is specifically designed to answer all the questions that are part of the value added producer grant application. So by creating a marketing plan that fills in all of those sections, you will be well on your way to being ready to apply for a value added producer grant.
I'm going to take a moment just to say we put together a Q&A sheet after each of these lunch and learns, and we always include resources at the top of the page, and we will definitely link to the resource that you just mentioned, Melissa, as well as websites that you've mentioned and other resources that Melissa feels would be valuable. So please go back to the lunch and learn resource page. It's under WWFSP. I'll put a link in the chat in just a second to send you there, but you can get resources on all those Q&A pages for any of the topics that we cover in a lunch and learn. Okay. Now I'm going to Johnny Fishmonger, who says we are planning to smoke and can our mackerel catch. We have excellent markets. The costs of a bigger boat and net are holding us back right now. Is seafood eligible?
Seafood is eligible. This grant is available to fishers. Unfortunately, buying a boat would not be an eligible expense. Nets, depending on their useful life, may be an eligible expense. Certainly, the other ingredients that you need, the paying the labor to do the processing, the cans, the labels, again, the website, advertising costs, all of those things are eligible. So if there's some way that you can get that launched without buying the bigger boat, this would be a good project for you. Or if you can do a feasibility study and go to the bank and get that bigger boat and then come back and apply for a value added producer grant to help you grow that market, this would be a great project. And I have to ask, is that your last name? Is that your real last name?
No, that's that's my nickname that
Yeah,
chefs gave me.
yeah.
Um, it's stuck though. I can't beat it now. I just gave up and
No, she is a
accepted it.
romantic message.
But um, it's one of the big problems we had in Alaska trying to qualify for USDA rural grants and value-added grants was if we started a new fishery, we needed to have 3 years of fishing before we could apply for anything. And I missed the first 10 minutes because I had the link to the meat processing, unfortunately, and was waiting for all you for a while there. But I finally figured it out. But is is there still that requirement that you have to be doing your business and producing for 2 or 3 years before you can qualify for any of these grants? Because that means we start as soon as we start, we got to still wait 2 or 3 years before we can even apply.
Yeah. So for the market expansion version of the working capital grant, you need to be marketing and selling it for 2 years. If you want to do an emerging market application, you can do that without having done it for 2 years, but that's the one that needs that feasibility study done first.
Okay, and what's the cap on funds for the emerging market grant?
250,000.
Oh, okay, so it's still the max. Okay, so thanks. Yeah, we can get that feasibility study done and everything, so that will help things. Yeah, because it was just everybody said if you got to wait 2 or 3 years, we can't help you. We're not going to help you.
Yeah, it does make it more challenging to apply for the emerging market one because of that requirement for the feasibility study. But if you have the resources to go get that feasibility study done now, you would be well positioned to apply for a VAPG grant come spring.
And what's the deadline for the VAPG grants?
So it's not open yet. They open it when they open it, and it's anytime between December and March. It's really entirely up to USDA. They don't have a set schedule. Typically, we see them open up in March with a 60 to 90 day window for applying. So what I encourage people to do is start on it now. If people want to work with me, I want to be working on these right now, right? October, November, December, I like to have them done and ready and set aside for when the grant period opens. And then what I do is I analyze the current year's application and see any differences from the previous year. They tend to be minor. I've never seen any major shifts, except in ways that have been really favorable, like during COVID, where it was a 10-to-1 match rather than a 1-to-1 match, which was really nice. But that did go away after 2021. So I like to have these applications ready to go. We then are able to go to USDA and ask for a prior review, and they're very willing to do those if you have them ready to go early. If you come to them 2 weeks before the application deadline and ask for a prior review, they will not do it. But if they open up for applications on March 1st with a May 1st deadline, and we're able to go to them by March 5th or 6th and say, hey, here's our application. Can you pre-score it for us? They give great feedback, which we then entirely incorporate and then get a much better score from them.
Thank you, Melissa. Looking forward to talking to you. Thank you so much.
I would enjoy that. Thank you.
Melissa, we have a question here about how are commodity costs determined for raw materials we produce on farm? Is there an annual schedule?
Yeah, so USDA Agricultural Marketing Service produces an ongoing list of what the commodity value is for fruits and vegetables. For proteins, it's a little more challenging, and for flours also, it's a little more challenging. What we need to do there is do a market survey. We go and we see for example, with eggs, what do eggs sell for in the grocery store that are not certified organic or are not local? And we take an average price of those, and that is how we determine the commodity value of those. So for example, with my grant, when I did that, I went into my local Hagen store and I said, here are other Washington producers, and here's how much they are selling their eggs to the grocery store for, took an average price. That was my commodity price. And then I was able to say, well, well and above that commodity value, I'm able to sell it for a much higher price. And so I'm adding value to it by it being local and organic. I can't remember which one I did. Does that help?
It does. I sell honey though, so it's not a typical commodity.
Yeah.
But if all I have to do is show a retail schedule of what folks are selling it for, even locally, which would be fine, that would suffice.
Well, what I did with mine was I took the retail price and I backed it out to the wholesale price. Or you can contact someone like Charlie's and see if they'll share what their wholesale price is, or, figure out what the wholesale value is if you're going to be selling at wholesale. If you're going to be selling at retail at, say, the farmer's market, you could take that retail price.
I'm just looking for how to establish, a 50% in kind through commodity pricing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I wasn't sure about this one comment Jane had. Could John, talking about, I think this is about fish, Johnny Fishmonger's question, could John use funds to buy from other fishers at first?
So John could buy up to 49% of the fish from other fishers. He would need to fish, is that the right word? Fish for 51% on his own. But that is a great way to grow your market, is to cooperate with other people to buy from them and then do the production, do the smoking and canning. But he would need to be producing 51% on his own. This is a grant specifically designed to help producers, people who are farming, ranching, and fishing directly.
That's great clarification. All right. Thank you. Do we have other questions people would like to ask? You can just speak up or you can put it
on the chat. It was if there were any samples or examples of value-added business plans that were submitted for application.
So I can't show you other people's applications or other people's marketing plans. You could certainly look at who's been funded and ask them if they would show them to you. But I do have a template that I share that will guide you through producing all of the information that you need in your marketing plan that would then go into the application template.
Oh, great. And that template will be part of the resources post lunch and learn. Great. Thank you.
Sorry, I missed that.
We were talking about the marketing template. So
Yeah.
I believe that was part of the packet last year, and I'll make sure that it's part of the packet this year.
Oh, I did ask it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Good. Any other questions here? Let's see.
Excuse me, there's a lot of big brains here. Our startup costs are a big hill for us right now. And we're trying everything to make this go, and we're up against fishing seasons that end soon and all that. What other avenues besides that, we're looking to do a small crowdfunder to get going, to kick off. What other avenues can anybody think of that besides a crowdfunder that we might be able to raise our initial startup capital, which isn't much. We're only looking for maybe 5,000 to 10,000 like right now. But we're in the middle of fishing and farming, so in between the two businesses, cash flow is really tough right now.
Mm-hmm.
But also, does anybody have any creative ideas on how to leverage a crowdfunding if we get an amount from the crowdfunding from friends and family and other interested in markets and stuff on how to leverage that, perhaps any mechanisms or any ideas on how to make that happen.
Yes, I actually did a Kickstarter to buy the processing equipment for the soup stock that I did, and basically pre-sold soup stock. So people, were able to say you're helping a small family farmer and you're going to be buying, a bunch of soup stock that will be delivered in the winter. So certainly for a small amount like that, that might be a good approach. I'm also wondering, Marty, do you know off the top of your head if the infrastructure grant would apply to fishers? I'm not really sure about that.
I'm not either. Do you know, Emily?
I'm looking at the page right now. It does not call out fishers specifically, but I don't think that means that they're excluded. That's certainly something worth asking about, and it opens October 6th.
Yeah.
So
And Johnny, I'd love to work with you on that. We can talk offline and look at that grant and see if that would be something that would apply for you. I'd love the idea of working with the fishermen. Another option that I used with the soup stock was probably not great advice, but I used a personal credit card just to kind of get things moving and getting that cash coming in. I don't think that's awesome advice, but I went and found one of those 18-month 0% interest ones, knowing that I had the sales that were going to be coming in. I had the customers, and it worked out, but I don't think I would advise that for everybody.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to work with and bring in slowly but surely other producers within our fishing community and other partners. Right now, it's kind of tough to show everybody that there's an actual pathway to markets, though we have really good markets with chefs and high-end retailers in the big cities. So to start off, and then later we want to look at farmers markets and also to food banks and all that. But just putting that initially together is just really being a tough high hurdle right now as we're trying to survive doing our regular day jobs.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I would put in a plug for the Puget Sound Food Hub as well. Selling through them, that'll give you reach to a lot more people than that you can reach on your own. A lot more customers.
And if we're located in Pacific County, that's our center of business and stuff. Is there other eligibility leveraging or doors that are open because we're in such a rural county?
Possibly. I don't know of anything. Do you, Marty or Emily, know anything offhand?
not off the top, it looks like Jane Simmons just asked, how competitive are the grants? Do funds run out, or is there just a matter of how feasible your project is?
This is a highly competitive grant program. It is a national program that basically they don't set aside money per state. It's per the nation. And this last year they funded, I want to say, about a third of the people who applied. And the way they distribute the funding is your local state office scores your application. And then the Washington, D.C. office scores the application. They take the average of those two scores, and that is your score. They line up all the scores nationwide, and they start funding them at the top with the highest scores. And then once they are out of money going down the list, they stop. And they fund them entirely. So there's no, we'd really like to fund more, so we're going to fund this one for 50% and this one for 50%. It's just an all or nothing. It is challenging. They are challenging applications to write. They are big. And NABC has a lot of experience doing it, and we definitely are here to help. We can't help everyone, but we do want to help as many people as we can. And so to that end, Emily has what do you call that thing that you produced? So basically an opportunity to have a one-on-one session with me to sign up where we can talk about whether you would be a good match for working with someone in NABC this winter and whether we think your project is ready to move forward. So I would love to talk to as many of you as are interested about that. Here is my direct email. And then I think Emily is going to post, there it is, a request for a one-on-one meeting. She put that in the chat.
I also saw there was a question from Maya Rose that I missed earlier that was, have all the 2023 VAPG winners been announced?
I believe everyone has been notified. Their deadline for doing that is September 30th. Everyone that I worked with this last year has been notified whether they did or didn't get accepted. I think that they're done at this point.
And then Peter wanted to know, what does your help cost?
Yeah, so it really depends on the size of the project. With farmers, ranchers, and fishers for the value added producer grant, I do a $500 upfront payment and then a percentage of successfully funded applications. So if you don't get funded, then you wouldn't owe me anything else. If you do get funded, it's between 5 and 7%, depending on the size of the project.
Wonderful. Do we have more questions?
I
or-
do see one other question from Catherine. What's the duration? Do funds
Yep.
need to be spent in a year? That is a really good question that I'm sorry, I probably should have had that particular slide in here. I tried to make this one small enough that we'd have lots of time for questions and answers. It's 3 years. So you write your project for anywhere from 12 months to 36 months. My recommendation is always to write it for a maximum of 24 months. The reason for that is that after 36 months, the funds go away. And everyone understands that farming happens. You can't always predict what's going to happen 3 years down the road. So if you initially budget out for 24 months and aren't able to spend all of their money in that time, they want you to spend the money that's been allocated to you, right? I mean, your Washington State office does not want to send that money back to Washington, D.C. So they will work with you to extend your project past that 24 months. If you initially write it for 36 months, which you can, but you come up to that 36 month and you still have $50,000 that's been allocated to you that you haven't been able to spend yet, it just goes away. 36 months is the absolute max. If you could figure out how to spend it in a month, 6 months, that's okay too. I've never seen anyone do that, but it would be really interesting to see.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? I'm just posting in here that there's a link to the Lunch and Learn resource library. It's the archives of all of the presentations that we've had. And if you click on each one, you'll see the recording of the presentation, Q&A sheet that I mentioned before, and the slides from the presentation. So I urge you to take advantage of those.
Yeah.
Melissa, are there other things? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say just one final word is, if you are a farmer, rancher, or fisher, apply for this grant. This one is designed for producers. It is honestly, there are definitely hoops to jump through, but it is the closest thing to free money that is out there for producers. It has the fewest or almost no strings attached to it. I mean, it genuinely, as a farmer myself, I cannot say enough of, I wish everybody would go apply for this grant. Go grow your farm, grow your ranch, grow your fishing, and produce more great food for our community. The other wonderful thing about this one is it's not a once and done. Once you've been granted an award, you're even more likely to get a second one because USDA wants to continue funding producers who are doing a good job with their money. So apply for it. The reporting and follow-up. So, initially you do need to get registered in the system for award management. You need to stay current on your taxes, just some kind of really basic things about taking somebody else's money. The reporting is twice a year, where you every 6 months basically say how well things have been going with their project. And then the other thing would be your reimbursement requests. You need to keep all of your receipts, be able to demonstrate how you have spent the money before you are reimbursed. But again, apply for this grant. This is an awesome one. And it doesn't seem to be going away. It comes out every year. Your grant money is taxable. Yep.
All right. Other thoughts? Anybody?
I'm texting back and forth with my partner Warren Neff, who some of you know, in Cascadian Seafarer project. He's harvesting apples right now. But he asks if NABC folks if we qualified for the last two on our application for accelerator and all that, if you could tell us.
I will be announcing soon, but I am not at liberty to share that right now. Sorry.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. We're anxious.
You'll know soon, I promise.
Well,
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work. You guys are all so amazing for small producers. Don't ever stop. We love you.
This is why I came to work with NABC, was they helped me so much as a beginning farmer. I started with the 3 chickens and didn't really have a great plan other than I just wanted to make food for people. And NABC guided me along the way and helped me figure out how to go from a really expensive hobby to an actual business.
right. Well, thanks for those wonderful testimonials, and thank you so much, Melissa, for this presentation. I hope you all will take advantage of Melissa's support, because as you can see, she knows how to do this very well and is a fan of these grants. And even though she said they're big and challenging, she can help you through it. So thank you so much for that. I also just want to announce the 2 upcoming lunch and learns. We have 2 in October scheduled already. The first one is coming up October 18th, and it's going to be Jessica Harper of Ag West Farm Credit, and she's going to be speaking about what's called the Ag Vision program, which is a loan program for beginning and small farms. So you don't want to miss that if you're a farmer starting out. And then October 31st, we're going to have Amanda Zakharov and Martin Lemos from Dirt Capital Partners. And they will be talking about long-term land access for farmers. So 2 agricultural presentations in October 18th, October 31st. Mark your calendars. Emily's already sent out some announcements of that, and we'll keep them coming. And we're looking forward to seeing you all the next time. Spread the word. Thank you again, Melissa, and thanks to everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye. You want to stop the recording, Emily?
Yes, thank you. I was just looking for